Colleagues, never ever let it be said that the start-up and scale-up businesses and thriving businesses in Milton Keynes lack stamina, because they don't. Well done to all of you who have seen this through to the final session. I know you won't be disappointed, so just bear with us for another hour or so, because we've got three really, really good speakers. So without further ado, the first of those I'm going to introduce to you, as per the programme, no changes to the programme now, is Arran. Arran Stewart, founder and CBO of MyJobMatcher. Arran, if you'd like to come up, you're there. Great. You'll take 20 minutes?
Yeah, that's fine. It is actually pronounced Arran, but that's fine. It's an unusual spelling, that's fine. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for having me, and it's a real pleasure to talk to you this afternoon. My pitch is good. Well, not a pitch, I said it straight away. I'm not going to give you a pitch today about my business. I'm going to give you a quick overview about what I do and my journey, and then the rest is going to be kind of a bit of advice, I hope, and something that you can kind of take away. So I'm the Chief Visionary Officer of MyJobMatcher. We are a matching engine that matches a person's CV against jobs advertised in the United Kingdom and now the United States. My background is that I've been in the online recruitment industry now for the last 10 years. And 10 years ago, I was living in a one-bedroom flat in Luton. I was 8 months behind on my mortgage. They were about to repossess my house. I'd had my cars taken off of me as well because they'd been repossessed. And I had a business that was completely failing. And the reality was, and one of the best bits of advice I think given earlier by Simon, I believe, was fast failure. And that was my first business, and it was in the online recruitment space, and it was a fast failure. It's something that I had to learn from, and I took a lot of information from that, which I utilised in my second business, which I moved on to and grew in the same industry, but from the lessons I'd learnt before, and I was fortunate enough to be invested in by a private equity house called Hamilton Bradshaw, which is James Kahn, 20 of you lot, that used to be on Dragon's Den. I grew that business, sold it with him, and then I became the chairman of Hamilton Bradshaw Technology, his private equity group to invest in online recruitment technology. Grew a number of investments through that as well, very fast paced, and it gave me a great experience. I have raised money from everything from Foundation East, where I raised £11,000 very originally, right through to doing seed, to private equity, to venture capitalist funding, to investment bank funding, debt instruments and bond debentures secured against my business. I've raised about £10 million over the years in regards to businesses that I have been part of. The latest business, or my kind of superstar, and my third company, which is MyJobMatcher, I set up 6 years ago, and I wanted to create a website that allowed people to find work easier. We conducted some research back then that found that the average job seeker would spend 7 hours a week online looking for work and would register with 21 separate employment sites. That's 21 separate logins, 21 separate UIs and UX, or user interface and user experiences for anybody who's not maybe entirely technical literate. And that is 21 separate notifications. And I thought, this is a very messy process. Why couldn't we utilise technology in order to centralise that for the job seeker? So we built a matching engine, which sounds a lot simpler than it actually is. It's our own intellectual property, and it is a taxonomy of 2 billion contextual words that is run by natural language process, machine learning process, and works on artificial intelligence and has predictive matching capabilities. It has the ability to do what a human does. It can read all of the job content advertised in the United Kingdom in a split second, match it against your CV, and generate a shortlist instantly, getting rid of your 7 hours, getting rid of your 21 different websites. And since we've launched, we've had 7.2 million people register with the website in the United Kingdom. Last year, I went through the quite long and laborious process of being audited by KPMG, and my business is now on the way to being IPO'd. And we have just recently completed an acquisition to 7 figures of another business in the United States, which I've now taken over. So I think I'm doing all right, especially because I come from Luton. Fair play. But I'm here to talk to you today about scaling up. And I hope I click the right button. No. That's me. So I like to call it the art of scaling up, because I think quite wisely we were told earlier that growing a business is actually far harder than you think, and growing can be just as bad as not growing. And many businesses, when they start, have this vision, this grand vision that they want to have a huge company, or potentially want to have a huge company, they want to be very successful, and they want to do everything that they dream of. But the reality is that 95% of businesses fail within the first 5 years. So 5% that make it through are actually the minority. And some of the reasons why these businesses fail is because they actually burn themselves out. They grow too quickly, it's unmanaged, and it's done in a way that actually can be detrimental to the core business that might actually be quite successful. My first bit of advice to anyone, and anyone in this room that is considering that they want to do what we call artificial growth, so not organic, not something that you see every year because the business is progressing, but an artificial growth where you're like, right, I want to put a rocket behind this business and I want to see it grow. You have to make sure that the core business itself has a strong foundation, all of your processes, everything that you run, and that customer satisfaction, retention and growth should be something now that you plough efforts into, not continuously learning on how to improve on. Some people might argue that, but this is just my opinion. But if you don't have these solid foundations, this is typically one of the reasons why businesses fail, because they've got problems or inherited problems within their company, and they decide that how can I continue the trajectory of where I want to go? I'm going to try and do this. I'm going to diversify. I'm going to expand. I'm going to move into a new market. When the reality is you need to focus on getting the business right today and then replicate that moving forward. There are 5 ways to scale as a rule of thumb, and they're market penetration, market expansion, product expansion, diversification, and acquisition. I think I've pretty much done most of these now, some that have gone a lot better than others, and again, my opinion will run through all of this because some I'll tell you to stay far away from. But the reality is, some of you will have ideas or plans that actually I probably wouldn't agree with, but actually may work for you. So this is just, again, my humble opinion. So, market penetration, selling more of the same stuff to the same people, which actually is a lot easier said than done. So if you've established that, you know what, we're doing really well, we've got great customer satisfaction, we know that we've got a product, our processes are really good, the business is running at a good optimum efficiency, I want to scale that up. But how do you actually go out about getting more market share? And it sounds kind of obvious, but to increase market share, you're going to invest in some marketing, so you're going to invest in whatever your customer base is. And for me, I have 2 sets of customers. I have the job seeker who rely on me every day to provide them jobs and vacancies to, pay their bills and feed their families, and they're a customer to me, but they don't pay me, but nonetheless, without them, I'm nothing. And then I also have the ability to let go. And that sounds kind of crazy because it's not that I'm now not bothering with my business, I'm all over it, but on a far more strategic level. Over the course of time that I've grown the business and the things that I've learned, is that I've needed to introduce the skill sets and the skills gap that I'm missing in the business, because I wasn't raised or even educated to the point to know how to run a business that's now going for an IPO. I was a guy that did a master's in business, but I'm from Luton Town and I did small business. So I recognised that I needed to bring an executive board in, which I have now, that sit as advisors and they have individual roles and KPIs. And then I had another layer of people that then were responsible for individual areas that reported back to them and created a hierarchy. Once upon a time, I would have been able to tell you pretty much what everyone in my business had for lunch. Whereas these days, there's people actually working for my business and I don't even know their name, because they're working in 3 different time zones and stuff like that. So I try to stay on top of it, but the reality is, if you're going to grow your business, you have to accept that there will be a point where you have to let go to a degree. Really, really important fact is growing burns cash. So if you want to grow, you typically need the capital to invest into it. And there are many different ways in order to get capital. You've got lenders, you've got the bank, but you've got private equity houses, you've got angels, you've got venture capitalists, you've got debentures and bonds, which you can secure against your business. There are many different innovative ways of raising finance. You can do consortium raises through investment banks. You can do crowdfunding now, which is brilliant. It's a great way of doing stuff. So the reality is, if you are looking to grow your business, don't be disheartened by the fact that you will be told no 99 times that you are not eligible for finance until you get that last one. I must have pitched thousands of times now, it feels like, in order to get people to invest in my ideas and my businesses. I was told no so many times. And what I understood from that is I recognised it wasn't a no because the business wasn't right and it wasn't feasible. It wasn't right for their strategy, for their portfolio, for their incentive, because they will have their own initiatives there. And if it doesn't fit them, that's why they've said no. It's not necessarily no because you've got it wrong. And you have to have the courage in your convictions in order to see it through and accept that you're going to get 99, but you will get that 100 if you've got the foundations of the business right and a proven working model. Final part of it as well is that you need the team. You know, just accept that you have to have a team on board with you to deliver it. And a lot of time I heard earlier, which actually I kind of disagreed with, which was hold on to as much of the shares as possible. Yes, of course you should hold on to as much of the shares as possible. But the reality is you'd rather have a small piece of a big pie than a big piece of nothing. Okay? So accept that in order to get people on board and for them to work as well for you as you would work, you need to give up shares in the business in order to incentivize them to feel like they have ownership of that business and that they are responsible and that they will walk through walls for you in order to achieve what you need to achieve. Because in order to be successful, it's not just a test of a good idea, it's a test of character. And this is that's the difference between successful and not successful. Summary. Don't confuse organic growth with artificial. So sometimes people get a little bit wrapped up in the fact they think, yes, we're doing fantastic, things are going really well. Metro Bank's, you know, a really good example of that. You know, they've got what I would call hyper growth, which is very, very exciting. But that's built on the back of, even though it's a very small raise in reality to what they had to do, 15 million sounds like a lot of money. That's tiny to do something like a bank. But they had a raise nonetheless, and they had an experienced skill set that were in there that meant they leapfrogged years and years worth of mistakes because they'd learnt that probably on the job previously. Listen to your gut. I know that sounds a bit cliche, but it's very true. If you're an entrepreneur, you know when you're ready to take your business to the next level. And you have to be able to be, if you can't be honest with yourself, then you'll never be able to be honest with your business. And your business is the sort of person that's in your life. You have to treat it like an entity. It's the thing that lies between you and your wife at night because you're thinking about it, worrying about it. It's the thing that you get up in the morning for and you're not quite focused on your children because you're too busy thinking about what am I going to do today and what do I need to do today. So if you're listening to it like that, listen to it when it's telling you that things are good and when it's time to go and it's time to scale up. Be ready to make mistakes and learn from them. Well, I mean, I have made so many mistakes. And there was a point in my early career where I honestly thought like I probably wasn't going to come back from the mistakes that I'd made. But fortunately I did. And that was the test of character for me because I didn't give up, because I had the courage in my convictions, because I believed what I was doing was right. And fortunately enough for me, I've proven myself right, which was all that mattered. You need to expect to lose money before you make money, and that's entirely true. Growth burns cash. You will have a cash dip. That's why people go out and raise finances, because they have to get the money in order to make the money, speculate to accumulate. But be prepared to be frugal with that money. A lot of the time people think, right, I've got this huge safety net now, and everything's fine. It's like, no, you need to be as frugal with that money as absolutely possible to extend your cash burn for as long as possible, because business plans are fluid, okay, which means it normally takes twice as long, costs twice as much, and you make half the amount of money. But if you can model that in a cash flow and it still makes money, then it's probably feasible to do because there's your margin of safety. Don't forget your core business. So in your expansion, which might be product, which might be a new geography, don't forget the very thing that put you there. Sometimes taking your eye off the ball or becoming focused on the new venture, the new thing that's going to take you forward, the new step with the business, can then get you to lose the actual core principles of what you stood for, what made you successful, and what is probably keeping the lights on and paying the bills at the moment. And that's one of the biggest dangers with businesses outgrowing themselves. They become so distracted by trying to manage this way of accelerating their business forward without doing it in a managed way that they forget the core business that they had in the first place that was successful, and that burns out too. So, as I said before, I've kind of repeated myself there, but prepared to hire the skills that you need for the business. You know, and for me, for example, you know, I recognised that there were so many things that I was missing, but I knew that I had a good business and that I brought it to a level of a foundation that other people would buy into. And now my executive board that sit around the company are all experienced people within my industry, some having exits up to £150 million for their business and others up to, you know, 10 or 11 million by the time they were 26, all within my industry, all have a share within my business, and all sit as my executive board. My chairman and my advisor is Rob Wilmot, the guy that founded FreeServe, if you remember it. Sold FreeServe for 1.6 billion when he was 29. He's my mentor, my chairman. So I've got the skill sets around me of people that are bringing me forward, because I recognise that the biggest flaw in the business and probably weakness was maybe me, because there's stuff I don't know. And when you're scaling up, don't assume that you know what to do because you know you need to do it. So plan, and plan again. You know, you have to model these things out. The amount of investment plans and structure plans, strategic plans that I have written, that my team have written, are just never ending. And sometimes it seems much for muchness, but I've got, you know, you can never be too prepared. You know, fail to prepare, prepare to fail. Okay? Any questions?
Excellent. Thank you very much. Just before we do have
some time for the odd question to Arran. Apologies.
Yeah, that was fine.
There is a car blocked in the car park. So is there anybody in this room, and they're going to be embarrassed if they are, because they'll have to get up and go move it, but who owns a Nissan with a registration number, I think it's OE, OS or 0S, VNS, a Nissan? No, well, you can let them know it's nobody in this room, so it's not our fault. So, questions to Arran. Okay, if we could have a mic there, there's second row back, a lady with glasses on.
Oh.
Always me. Your story is amazing and very inspiring. I'm Marisa from Orbital Recruitment. You talk about diversification.
Yeah.
Our recruitment core business is logistics distribution.
Okay.
We are having to diversify due to Brexit.
Yep.
93% of our workforce is non-UK based.
Yep.
So we are having to look at other channels to be able to promote our business. We're a business with passion. We're a business that cares. Our new project, which to help us diversify, is to promote homeless people back into employment, ex-offenders also. What I'm now struggling with is getting the client base to engage with me and help me promote them back into the business, to get them into the business and minimising that risk. Advice on being able to get that buy-in from clients.
So the first thing I would do is I would identify a client that would have an incentive in order to employ someone like that who would ride off the back of that PR. So you would probably want to go on a PSL of someone who's got a corporate social responsibility plan. So you might, I don't know who you're targeting or who you're trying to speak to, but you might want to take a different angle of speaking to a hiring manager and actually try and speak to a CSR program for a major company, for a FTSE 100 company, for example, and say, look, this is an angle we're going at. We're trying to get people that have, a bit down their luck, had bad luck, or they've got ex-offenders, but, rehabilitating them, getting them back in, and we'd really like to work with you to get them into your business. And, you could have good hires, etc. You might have to negotiate on your fees, because I'd imagine they're not going to pay 15% for that. And but at the same time, I think there's a lot of merit in that. So you might want to go at a different angle, because I think phoning up a hiring manager, because you think of the psychology of it. My whole career's been in recruitment. As a hiring manager, am I going to take the risk of hiring an ex-offender potentially for my medium-sized business that if I get this wrong, I get the sack? No way. But if it comes from the top, from a company that's got a CSR program who says, look, we're going to take a risk, we're going to take a gamble, and we want you to manage this process, Mr. Hiring Manager, they might listen. So I think it's very admirable what you're doing, and I think actually it could be a good success, but I think you need to get one, maybe Metro Bank. Might want to talk to them. Yeah. That's why you're here, guys. I'm sure you've got a CSR program. So, but that would be my advice. No, you're very welcome.
Great, and then I think the last question from Jean.
Hi, Jean Gowan from Genius Consulting. We've had some tremendous speakers today who've been really inspiring and have fired everybody up. But I'm guilty, like you are, of being somewhat distracted with my family sometimes when my mind is on my business and I've got lots and lots of different ideas. How do you switch off? Just as a business person, is it possible to switch off that sort of entrepreneurial thought process?
Do you know what? I'd be lying if I said I switched off. And I really would, And do you know what I've got? I've set myself the goal for an exit. My aim is, and the plan is with the investment bank we've got 2 investment banks that are taking us to IPO in the United States at the moment, which should be finished in the next 18 months. I'm probably going to do the next 180 days after that point and then exercise my share options, de-risk myself and take a long holiday. And that's when I'm probably going to switch off. My advice to you is try and enjoy the moments that you do get with your family, because don't forget the very reason why you work. Don't forget the fact that you work to live, you don't live to work. And in reality, they are the thing that matter. I'm married, I have 3 children, love them to bits, and I've been guilty that I've missed out potentially on some really important moments in their life in a sense of that I wasn't there myself. I was there, but I wasn't there. And I it can be quite upsetting, but it's the sacrifice I take to try and give them everything. But don't forget, everything is probably you that they want, not necessarily finance and success. So try and balance it as best as possible. But I'd be preaching if I tried to tell you any other way. But that's my, you know.
Well, look, thank you for those thoughts. Now, Arran,
Yes.
I'm a woman of a certain age. Well, actually, 64 to be precise. And when I was younger, people used to say to me, if I said, I'm just a woman, don't ever, ever say that. Now, I want to give you some advice. You say, I'm from Luton Town and I'm proud, look what I have achieved.
Yeah,
all right?
absolutely.
Never ever say, I'm just a lad from Luton.
Yeah.
Because, and I am a big passionate advocate of Milton Keynes, as everybody knows, but I care about the whole of the South East Midlands, LEP. Luton is going for City of Culture, UK City of Culture, in 2025. But Luton is a great place.
Oh, yeah.
Be proud of it and say, I'm from Luton and I am a bloody successful entrepreneur. And they'll love you for it. Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah. You still live there?
I know, I live
You
in
live near
Hampshire.
Hampshire, yeah, but even so, very good. Thank you.